everyone. Good afternoon. Um, so I'm gonna try and like lead us through the panel discussion. So I'm Swin. I'm a PhD student in environmental engineering, um, and my research mostly focuses on drinking water. I was a civil engineering major in undergrad, um, and so I'm gonna pass it over to everyone. And I think if you want to say your pronouns, your current department, brief description of your research, your undergraduate major, and then also just for a fun question, we're gonna go with what has been your biggest accomplishment or proudest moment in your undergraduate career. Um, and so I'm gonna say, Fiona, get started, and then you can point to the next person.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona. I am a PhD candidate in structural engineering and mechanics. My pronouns are she, her. So my undergraduate degree was in civil engineering, and structural engineering mechanics is one kind of subfield in civil engineering. My research is related to wood, like trees, wood mechanics. So understanding how forces flow through wood and how we can use that in large scale buildings. My biggest accomplishment as an undergrad, I think, was I won a research grant from NASA my senior year of college, which was really cool and really exciting for me at the time. So yeah, I will send it over to Hannah.
Hi, everyone. I am Hannah. I am a first-year master's student in environmental and water resources engineering. My pronouns are she, her, and I am studying how intermittent water supply, which is basically when you don't have water coming to your house through the pipes all the time, how that can have a variety of water quality issues that make the water not safe to drink. And I did my undergrad at UMass in civil engineering. And I would say my proudest accomplishment was probably defending my thesis my senior year of undergrad. And I'll pass it over to Cassie.
Hi, thank you. My name's Cassie. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a PhD candidate at UMass as well. I'm getting my degree in food science. I also got my undergrad in food science at New Mexico State University in Las Cruces, New Mexico. My research focuses on how nutritional compounds affect the gut microbiome. However, I do have an engineering background, as one of the 3 principles of food science is food engineering. And I'm also part of the Polymer Science and Engineering Fellowship here at UMass. My proudest moment undergrad was when I decided to randomly apply to UMass on like a 2-week whim and took the test and everything and got in. So.
Okay, awesome. Great. So I have some questions, and they'll be mostly focused on success in college. So how did you find success in college, and what tips and tricks you have for people who have questions about them. If anyone in the chat or anyone present at any point have like a question that needs to be answered, just raise your hand or just unmute yourself and talk over me, and like we'll take your questions. But if not, I have questions prepared, and like we'll just ask those questions, and our panelists can talk about them. So let's see. All right, so I'll start with what made you decide to pursue a STEM education? And say Cassie, take it away.
I wanted to pursue a STEM because in high school, I really liked biology. In New Mexico at their high school, they only require 3 years of science, not 4. But I remember I took an extra science class as an elective because I enjoyed it so much. So I wanted to continue going into STEM in into undergrad. I picked food science kind of on accident. I thought it was nutrition, to be honest. But after my first semester, I figured out what it was, and it was much more interesting to me. So I stayed in that field.
Hannah?
So the reason that I chose STEM was I actually thought I wanted to do international relations when I was in high school. I was part of Model UN, which basically like simulates the United Nations, and I was really into that. But I went to a conference for them and I learned about this global water crisis. And I was like, I'm so interested in this, and there are so many applications to the environment and everything, but I didn't know if I wanted to do environmental science or environmental engineering. And so I actually was on a college visit and talking to a professor at one of the schools and asked what the difference was between environmental science and environmental engineering. And the professor said that engineers solve problems and environmental scientists study them. And so I was like, I want to solve problems. So I chose environmental engineering.
Last but not least, Fiona.
So when I was in high school, I wanted to become a professional dancer. I did not want to like even necessarily go to college. But my parents suggested that maybe I go to pursue a career that had longer term career opportunities. And so in high school, I was kind of like just average at everything. I wasn't particularly strong in math or science. I liked writing. Like I kind of was just like average across the board. But my parents said, if you pursue a career in STEM, you have opportunities to kind of do whatever you want afterwards. You are learning to solve problems, you're learning to think critically. Those are skills that can really translate to anything else you want to do. So I really didn't have any idea. So that's what I did because I knew it would give me a few more years to at least think about what I wanted to do for a career. So I didn't really realize that I wanted to pursue it seriously until I was a sophomore probably in college. When I took my first civil engineering class, I felt like everything just kind of like clicked and it made sense, and I was finally enjoying what I was doing. So I think, yeah, what the takeaway from that is that, you know, you don't necessarily know what you want in high school, the first year of college, but things you'll figure them out as you go through. And I'm very happy now, obviously, to be in engineering, and while sad to not be dancing as much anymore, I'm happy with my decision.
All right. So, okay, so this is maybe a silly question, but I do get this a lot from high schoolers. So, is STEM hard?
I think I can answer that. I think STEM is challenging, but it's challenging in like a really rewarding way. There's like nothing like sitting down and trying to figure out a problem and working on it, and finally everything kind of like comes together and you feel like such a rush of like accomplishment. I see that like in myself. I also see it in students that I'm like teaching. And so it's really rewarding in that way. I also think that the problems are really interesting. And so when you have interesting problems, it makes it really exciting to think about. So even if you're thinking about it for a long time, it's an enjoyable experience, like really kind of working through these different types of problems. Yeah.
I'll add on to that. I had a friend once who told me that she never really would say something was too hard. She would always just say like, I just need to stare at it long enough. And if I stare at it long enough, I'll eventually get it. So I sort of still think about that when I don't understand something. If I just keep staring at it, I eventually figure it out.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think there are a lot of different ways that STEM can be hard, but it also plays to a lot of different people's what they're good at, because you have like things like classwork where you're solving problems that are, you know, maybe math or physics problems. And then you have doing research where you're doing a lot more hands-on stuff. So you might be sampling or working with chemicals or something like that, or building something. There's field work. So there's a variety of aspects of STEM that you could be a part of. So just because you might find one part hard doesn't mean that you can't do another aspect of it.
That sounds great. Okay, so um, when you did find them hard and challenging in your career, what are some example resources that you took advantage of to help you?
One of the best things I think a professor ever told me was when you take a class, it's just as important to look at who's teaching the class as who's in the class with you. So my cohort of food scientists, there weren't many of us at NMSU, but we always took our classes together. And then we sort of all relied on each other. We went to the library together, we had study groups, and then it sort of became fun also. So it being fun helps you retain information as well. So I think having a good community of peers is very important.
Yeah, I think building on that, like I definitely had, the group of people that I studied with or worked through my assignments with that made it like much easier to be successful, but also much more fun because you got to spend time together. I think one thing that I didn't realize right at the beginning is to also really reach out to your faculty and your professors. Going to office hours and things like that really helps. Especially, I went to the University of Connecticut for my undergrad, which is a big school, and it's easy to kind of get lost in the masses. But by speaking to your professors, they really start to get to know you, and they are a lot of the time much easier to interact with one-on-one. And so, yeah, that really helped me. I think also looking at different resources on campus, there's often like tutoring available or resources at the library that can help from helping with like math assignments and chemistry assignments to writing assignments. There's often different centers regardless of the university that you go to.
Yeah, just to quickly add to that, also talking to students that are in the years ahead of you, because they can give you good advice on what professors to have for which classes and what classes that they really liked or what resources they use. So it's really helpful to talk to people that have already gone through it.
Okay. So I wanted to maybe focus this a little bit more. So a lot of people would say that the transitioning period from high school to college is like really hard. Um, so how was your particular experience? Like, what was challenging? Or was it just like super easy? You did it just fine. Share with us, and if it was challenging, or what was actually fun about it, tell us about it.
I can start. I was part of a residential academic program, or what they call RAPs at UMass, and I was in the engineering RAP, and that was a really great way to transition. I felt like we had a peer mentor who was in engineering and a few years older than us, and so he would help us with any issues that we were having in our classwork, and then our RA was really good at transitioning us as well. But it also really helped to have all of these students that were all in engineering together. So we were all in the same classes and kind of going through that same transition period together from high school to college. And so that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, I also lived in like what we called it the engineering learning community at UConn. And so it was a dorm just full of freshman engineering students. And that was a really great resource, a really great way to meet people and to get help with different assignments throughout the semester. I will say my transition to college was really challenging. I struggled with the coursework. I struggled with being away from home. I struggled with like anything you name it. I struggled with it. And so there was a lot of different, it took me at least a year probably to kind of get my feet under myself. And there was a lot of different ways I went about doing that. I built a stronger like social network. I used the different resources on campus. So there's a lot of things on campus about mental health services. There's also resources for student success, learning disabilities, any of that. There's resources, and I would really recommend for people to reach out because, yeah, I think you struggle with things in college that are different than high school, especially when you're in a new environment and don't really know what to expect. I would also say, I think we're going to touch on this later, but like making sure that you're living a balanced life, making sure you're doing things that are fun and not just studying, but also making sure that you're studying and not just doing fun things. It's an important like balance to reach there. And I think something that I struggled with a lot was kind of knowing how to study. In high school, like studying was not something that I really needed to do. It kind of, I just went to class, learned the material, and then took the test, and it was fine. Everything was fine. And that was not the experience I had in college. I really needed to apply myself and study, and learning how to study effectively was really important. The way I did that was learning from other students who kind of knew already, seeing how they reviewed for their exams, and speaking to professors, seeing what they recommended, and going to some seminars offered on campus about studying. So not to scare you, like there's a lot of room for success. There's a lot of opportunity for personal growth. But it's important that if you are struggling your first semester at college, that you really reach out and try and turn things around, because you can. And things really did turn around for me by the time I got to my sophomore, junior year of college. I was loving it. Things were great. And yeah, that was a result of taking advantage of resources on campus.
I sort of had the opposite problem. Sorry, I drank water and started like choking off screen. I didn't, my university was in the same town as my high school was, so I didn't move out of my parents' house until I actually moved to Massachusetts. So it was hard for me because all of my friends did end up going to a different university. So I was sort of stuck in my hometown where I went to high school, but except now all of my friends were gone and I had to go to this university. So everything felt the same, but then it also felt different. So so the first semester was a little difficult. I think a lot of people can struggle the first semester for different reasons, just because it's so different for a variety of reasons for different people. It did, of course, get better after the first semester. I made new friends. The same with the studying. I didn't study in high school at all. I was also extraordinarily average, so I didn't try very hard to study. Not that I got bad grades, but I definitely did not study in high school. So my first chemistry class exam, I think I got like a C or a D, and I freaked out and I was like, I'm not for college, this isn't for me. But then somebody was like, did you study? And I said no, and they're like, well, maybe you should. So then once you get over a learning curve, you get used to it and it's fine.
I saw a question in the chat about how to access resources. And there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. There's often just on the university website, if you look for, depends on what kind of service you're looking for. But if you're looking, for example, mental health services, if you just look on the university website, there'll be links to there. Also, if you're struggling with different things, you can ask like faculty or graduate students, TAs that you are working with. They can also direct you to those resources. Everybody at the university wants you to succeed, so they're going to put effort into directing you to the right channels where you can get help. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything to add on to that. The way I found different resources was through kind of just verbally through my peers, and also looking on the university website.
Yeah, also if you're living on campus your first couple of years, the RAs and peer mentors are really good about providing all of those resources to you. Also, you get a lot of emails from the university, and while you might not read all of them, I would definitely recommend like skimming through them and making sure that, you know, if they do list those resources out in there and they can be really helpful. So I would say definitely at least take a look at the emails that you're getting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say like with the pandemic too, universities are getting used to, you know, and they're learning how to provide these services for you um, remotely. So, um, yeah, and I was gonna mention too that you have the dean of students. Like in every college, there's like dean of students, and they're there to help you like succeed in college. So reach out to those offices, and just don't be afraid to ask questions. Like I think everyone is confused, and don't be afraid to ask questions and ask for help. All right, so thank you for that question. We will move on. So a lot of you mentioned having a support network. Um, and can you dive a little bit deeper into having the support network? Like, what was it like? Was it mostly comprised of friends, or was there like faculty in there too? And how did you build it? Um,
I can start. So when I think about like my support network in college, there's like kind of three different, you know, groups that I think of. So I had my peers in my engineering classes who I met through just through the classes. We would be assigned an assignment, and I distinctly remember just approaching someone I kind of knew and was like, "Hey, I'm going to start working on this homework assignment later today. Do you want to meet at 3 and get it done?" And from there, we became really close friends. We're still in touch today, and we graduated like 5 years ago. So and from there, once you get like a group of 2 or 3 people together, then a number of other students in your program will want to take advantage of that kind of study group. And so that was really great for just getting through the courses. For kind of professional development type stuff, we would talk about and edit each other's resumes. We would talk about what internships were like and things like that. I also think about in my engineering, I had one professor in particular who I like considered kind of like my mentor. I basically approached him my junior year of college and was like, "I'm really interested in research opportunities. Can you tell me about them?" And he kind of took me under his wing, got a lot of really great opportunities for me. He's kind of the reason that I did undergraduate research. He's the reason I got to present at conferences as an undergraduate, publish as an undergraduate. So, and the only way that I got in touch with him was just by sending him an email and saying, like, "I'm really interested in the research that you do. Do you have any time to spend with me?" And so I would recommend doing that. If you look at your faculty's like web pages, it'll say their interests, it'll say their like current research, and it's a really good way to kind of get faculty support. And then the last thing is I just had like kind of a social network. So I was part of a bunch of different like social organizations. I was in a sorority, I was on the dance team, and just having friends who weren't thinking about engineering at all was just like fun. And it had me like stop worrying about my courses, and kind of getting out of the mindset of, I need to be working on my homework all the time, which was something that I struggled with for a little bit. So yeah, just finding, a group of people who were just fun to be around and to kind of reduce some of the stress. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that, I think.
I also still have some friends from undergrad I talk to, two primarily, I guess maybe lifelong friends now. We graduated almost 4 years ago. Now we talk about other sort of food science related things that aren't about school, just about their jobs and their careers now. So it's sort of switched our topic, but yeah, I met them too during classes. They were in all of my classes, these two friends. So then we just sort of became like a little group. We would do things like in the food science department together. There used to be like an ice cream making club. We all joined the club. We did stuff like that. And then I still had some friends, since it was my hometown, who were in other departments. I would hang out with too. So that was a nice like group of different majors to talk to. And then I was also very close with my advisor in undergrad. I still talk to her quite frequently as well. So I think it's really good if you start talking to the faculty just as much as students, like as was said.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. You guys covered most of it, I think. But I would say definitely joining student organizations is really helpful to get a network of people both within your major and outside your major. So I was part of Engineers Without Borders, and I met a lot of students through that. And I also met faculty members that I consider definitely a huge part of my support network. And that definitely helped me as well in the transition that we talked about earlier from high school to college, just having that group to be a part of.
Okay, great, thank you. So I think research came up a lot. So what is research? And like, and a lot of you mentioned how you got involved with research, but if there's any other things you want to tell us about research and maybe how that was a part of your undergraduate career. A lot of you are PhD students, so um, that was probably integral. So share with us.
Sure, I can try and explain what research is. So research is a lot of faculty, they split their time between teaching and then doing research. And research is they're looking into some specific problem, trying to figure out, what's happening, how to solve it. And often it's, if a professor is, for example, working in the civil engineering department, he might teach a very basic level class like statics or something like that. It's a common undergraduate course. And then his research could be related to, or their research could be related to something specific within that field. So for example, I only know like structural engineering examples, but they might research new types of concrete and how that concrete could be applied to buildings, why it might be beneficial to for certain loading conditions. So it's often something small. You can do kind of experimental work where you're like physically building something and testing it in the lab, which can be really exciting. There's also computational research where you're more often working on a computer, programming, coding. And then there's a lot of faculty who do kind of like a combination of those two, some experimental, some computational. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add kind of on the definition or what research means. But I got involved in research because my parents, to be perfectly honest, were involved with research, and they said, this is something that might be of interest to you. So I started to look into kind of what the different faculty in my department did. And one of the faculty was designing like structures for NASA, which just, I think that's so cool. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of that. And so when I reached out to him, he said, sure, like, why don't we start off with just reading some papers about it and see what other people are doing, and then we can move forward. There are, I think, in a lot of different departments, a lot of different groups, there's space for undergraduate researchers. A lot of people do it as kind of like an honors thesis. And it depends, I think, on your university and your program, but I was not an honors student, and I just decided I wanted to do it and reached out. It's not something that's required as an undergraduate student, but it's something that I really enjoyed and really helped me feel more confident in my engineering capabilities and also build connections in my department. And it was also pretty integral in my decision to go to graduate school. I liked the 2 years that I had done as an undergraduate, and I knew that that's something I wanted to continue to do. So I think that's all I have to say on the topic. If you have the opportunity or are interested in it, definitely reach out and see what you can do, what kind of opportunities are available.
Yeah, I can add to that. I got into research because I was looking for a summer like internship or position to do, and I got an email that was just sent out to the department in general saying a professor was looking for a student to work in her lab. And so I talked to the professor, and that's basically how I got into research. And I was actually in air pollution research to start with, but I knew I wanted to research water. So then I started, talking to more professors. And after I spent a summer researching air pollution, I was like, I think I want to switch to a water lab. And so then I ended up working in a different lab, and that's also like kind of led me into doing a thesis. So I feel like the opportunities, like once you start looking for them, they're all there, and you can definitely sort of cater it to what you're interested in. And there are just so many options.
And then I just wanted to add really quick. I know a lot of labs or students do research as their senior thesis, but I know a lot of labs like students who are sort of earlier in their academic career just so that they can stay in the lab longer. It sort of helps build up like a relationship, and maybe your project could get a little further with more time. So you can start doing this before senior year. I joined mine in my junior year, and there's some students in my lab at UMass who joined when they were sophomores. So that's something you can sort of start thinking about pretty early.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I guess maybe we move on to something fun. So besides maybe the more academic extracurricular activity like research, what other things can you do on campus that are maybe more fun and or maybe just are enriching in some way? Maybe just walk us through some of your favorites, um, and just comment on how they play a part in your undergraduate career.
I can go first. I would say intramural sports are really fun. And it's basically where you form a team of your friends, and then you play against other teams that are at your school. And they have all sorts of options. I've never played basketball before, but I played basketball intramural. We did like all sorts of different ones, flag football, um, volleyball, soccer. I mean, they have pretty much everything, and it's really fun to just like, you don't have to be good at it. It's just an opportunity for you to let off some steam and not do whatever your field of study is for a little while. Um, Also, like club sports are really fun. I was on the club swim team, so they have a lot of social events in addition to like practices every day. So that was a great opportunity to kind of have a more balanced, I think, lifestyle than just doing engineering all the time. So those are just a couple things you can do.
I know as well, at some universities, they'll have like theater for non-majors or art for non-majors. So you can still sort of learn about and do and be a part of maybe something that interests you, but you don't want to like primarily be your major. So yeah, I knew a few people who were in a play, but they weren't part of the theater major, but they had that available.
I think also a lot of schools have a lot of different clubs that you would not even think of. There's I'm not sure how many at UMass, but hundreds, I'm sure. And if there's not something that suits you, you can make your own club and start your own. And so there really is something for everyone. I think you'll find interests that you had no idea that you even had during your time in college, which is kind of an exciting part of it. And I would just really recommend trying everything, anything that you can, anything you have time for, because it's part of the fun is getting to know people who have experiences so different than your own and have interests so different than your own.
All right. So you mentioned time, having time to do everything, anything you want in college, and so if you can briefly comment about maybe one successful strategy that you use for time management, if anyone could like go around and like talk about it, or it's just how it's a pain in the butt to manage. That would be fine too.
Sure. I was really involved in college, maybe to a fault. But the benefit of that is I found that because I had a lot of different commitments, I had very structured time, and so there was a certain amount of time I had to work on my assignments, and so I had to work on my assignments during that time. So while there's challenges of being committed to things, overcommitted to things, it really makes you take advantage of your free time to work on your actual real coursework. One thing that I really recommend that I don't think I really knew from high school was use a planner. Like you got to have a planner. Write down your assignments, write down your meetings, write down when your classes are, because sooner or later there's going to be so many different things going on, and you're the one who's responsible for getting everything in on time and getting everything submitted on time. So kind of figure out what you like. I love writing things down by hand. It helps me remember things. So I have a written planner. A lot of people use like Google Calendar or other online ways of managing their time, but I would really strongly recommend you take advantage of a planner.
Yeah, I really second using a planner. It's so helpful. And also, I would say if you do your schoolwork with groups of other people, it holds you accountable. So you're all like, okay, we're going to get this done at this time. So that definitely really helped me throughout school. When I needed to get an assignment done, I'd say to someone else, like, okay, let's work on it at this time and, aim to get like this much of it done. So that helped me a lot. I would also say it's important to recognize when you need to sleep and when you need to look after yourself and eat and everything. That's the priority, is looking after yourself. So schoolwork can always wait, and just like make sure that you're leading a balanced life and looking after your mental health as well.
A strategy that I used, I was a waitress for 3 years during undergrad. So a lot of my nights were taken up having to go to work. So what I would do is similar to a planner. I couldn't bring myself to do the planner thing, but I did do a sticky note. So I would take a sticky note. I'd write all the assignments that I had due. I think it was on Thursday, or like a week up until Wednesday. And on Thursday and then Sunday mornings were my homework days. So I just crossed them off the list, and it felt really good. So a lot of times people, me sometimes as well, they'll sort of wait till the day of to do the assignment. But just because I had that sticky note and I saw it constantly, it felt really good to scratch it off. So a lot of times I'd end up finishing assignments like 2 or 3 days before they were due, just because like it felt good. And I think that sort of helped me. Like if I forgot something, I had 2 more days to do it or something like that. So that sort of helped me manage time, was to sort of do it a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah, to echo that, I work with undergraduate students. I've TA'd, I think, 6 or 7 semesters. And a common mistake I see all the time is they wait till the day an assignment is due to begin the assignment. And I know that that is something that often works in high school. But in college, you often have like a week to work on a homework assignment, and you're given a week for a reason. It's because it's going to take more than a couple hours or more than 1 or 2 hours to do. So definitely at least look at the assignment before you wait till the day it's due, so that you know the expectations of how long it's going to take, because it's a common mistake, and it's something that I see very, very often with my undergraduate students. So at least take a look at it when it's assigned. Just take a look.
Okay, great. So the next one's kind of broad. Um, but just to give you maybe ideas to answer it, like there are stereotypes in engineering, like you have to be good at math, you have to be good at science, you have to like like either have that triangle that's like good social life, like good sleep or good grades, and you have to pick just like two of them. What was an engineering stereotype that you found to be false or true? Then talk to us about it.
I feel like in like on TV or whatever, you see engineers or scientists kind of shown in a certain way, like they're not very fun, not very cool. They're, kind of like nerdy, which whatever, I don't think nerdy is a bad thing, but I think everyone that I've interacted with in my engineering classes in my engineering career has been so cool, and I've always looked up to my faculty. I've always looked up to like my peers, and the idea that engineers aren't cool is just so not it, because they're a lot of fun. They're great to be around, and they're also really smart people. So just the idea that that if you go into engineering, there aren't going to be like other fun, cool people to hang out with is just not true. There's so many people, and there's so many different types of people that you can kind of click with. So yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think my freshman year intro to engineering professor said something along the lines of like, how are civil engineers different from other engineers? And he was like, when they're talking to people, they look at the other person's feet instead of their own feet. And it basically was the idea of like, yeah, engineers aren't social and are really shy and introverted. And I would say that's definitely not true. Some of the most outgoing people I know are engineers, and also like engineering and STEM in general, you're designing things for people. So you need to be able to have those people skills where you're figuring out what people need, and you're talking and, discussing plans and everything. So it's a very team oriented field, I think.
One of the, I guess, ideas that I learned in grad school actually was that the stereotype that scientists are just, what is it? Is it right brain or left brain? Whichever one is like thinking oriented. That's not technically true. To be in STEM, you do have to be very, very creative to come up with all this stuff. So being in a STEM field is creative as well, rather than just you're looking at a textbook and memorizing stuff. It does take creative thought.
I think also like the importance of communication. You think about STEM and you're like, all right, math, science, physics, that's what I got to be good at. And I think often it's easy for people to ignore the importance of communication, both like verbal communication and written communication, because writing is how we, share our ideas. It's how you work with a client. It's how you present anything that you've created. But also verbally, it's what we're doing right now is communicating verbally. When you're working with your teammates, that's verbal communication. And so I think the idea that scientists and engineers aren't excellent communicators is also a stereotype that is not necessarily true.
All right, cool. So we're closing. We're running up against time. So, um, let me kind of gears towards the end with. So, are there any tips and tricks that are maybe not commonly known in your career? And I have in my notes that like office hours, study spaces, or like mapping out campus. If you can all comment on any of those that you feel like you didn't know or like that wasn't really widely known. Good.
I have one thing that I would love to plug, which is I have this book that I read when I first got to college, changed my life. It's called Learning Outside the Lines by Jonathan Mooney and David Cole. And it is like how to study. And it tells you, like, if your professor assigns a reading, like if he assigns a chapter or textbook, how to read that textbook to get use out of it. And it tells you how to think about studying for an exam, what the best way to do it is, how to interpret what your professor says. So he might say something like, this problem is really important. And that likely means that that's going to be on the exam. So I really recommend the book. Really helped me learn how to study. And I think it's something that like not a lot of people realize is available. Yes, I can write the name of the book. I'll do that now.
All right, anyone else?
I would just definitely say office hours. Like, I know that everyone says that, but they're honestly so helpful. And ultimately, like, if you go to the professor and you say, I'm struggling with this, or even just want to clarify something with them, it helps you in your grade. And because you're, discussing with the professor and they see that you're working harder on the homework and putting in the effort and time to learn the material. So I would definitely say go to office hours. It also helps you establish a relationship with your professors that then you can use for research opportunities or other letters of recommendation later on. So it's helpful because it just shows that you're wanting to do well in their class.
I guess what I can add is something I haven't thought about in a long time was how me and my friends would study is that sort of helped a lot was I made sure that it was really fun all the time. So my notes, I would draw like little characters on the notes because then the little characters helped me remember. And then when we would study, we do like a game show kind of thing a lot of times too. So if you can just incorporate fun, because it really does help you remember instead of being like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail. I think that's like how I got through college. I just made it really kind of fun.
Okay, cool. All right. So I think I want to. Oh, actually, just really quickly, if you had experience with um, working for internships or jobs, like during your undergrad career, can you please tell us about it and how did it maybe enrich or influence? My phone just went off for no reason. Influence your undergrad career.
I had a summer internship by the summer between my junior and my senior year. And it was at a consulting firm in geotechnical engineering, which is a subfield of civil engineering. So my bachelor's degree was in civil engineering. And when I was at the time, I started thinking about graduate school, and I knew that I probably wanted to go into either geotechnical engineering or structural engineering. And so getting the internship in geotech really helped me think about where I might or what I might want to do for my grad school. I loved the internship. It was really great. But I realized that being on a construction site maybe wasn't for me. And so I realized that the opportunities that I was looking for were really more on the computational side of structural engineering. So I'd recommend like getting the internship, I think can be a challenge. It was a challenge for me. And I'd recommend just applying everywhere, applying anywhere, and seeing kind of what comes up. And from that, what comes up, you can, make a decision from there. The internship I got was the only internship offer I ever got. And it was a great experience. I loved it. But yeah, just apply anywhere and see what you can get. I did not have an internship during high school. I just had a regular summer job. And I had a regular summer job after my freshman year, after my sophomore year of college. And even after my senior year of college, before I went to grad school, I just had a regular summer job. So yeah, my recommendation would be to apply to anything because you learn a lot from what you're doing, even if it's not exactly what you want to be doing for the rest of your life. Yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, to add on to that, I worked in 2 research labs as my summer internship at UMass. And then I ended up, after I graduated, I worked for an environmental consulting firm and I actually found then that I had never done an internship in consulting before. Um, and I actually found that I didn't like it. And so it was a good opportunity for me to kind of see, like, okay, this isn't what I want to go into, and I want to go back to doing research. But I would say looking for internships that kind of get you exposed to different areas of your field is really helpful. Because I think if I had done a consulting internship, I might have known that I didn't want to do consulting as a full-time job. So I would say definitely explore different options. Don't um, limit yourself.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I had an internship at a chili pepper factory where part of my internship was I had to review the processes of processing the chili down the line, which was cool because I got to wear a hard hat and there were sparks flying everywhere and it was really exciting. But then the other part of the internship was doing food safety, which is sort of not as exciting. It's just, you know, plating, which I guess is what I do in grad school now. But it did sort of give me insight on like the multiple branches that you can go into in a field. So it is very, you do learn a lot more than just how to do the thing. It's what your interests are.
All right. So I wanna maybe close us out here with um, are there any advice that you wish you had gotten? Maybe give your advice towards a young woman interested in the STEM field in college.
Yeah, I would say you're always told that like not everyone's going to make it through engineering, but you can make it through engineering. And I was really intimidated going in knowing that it's a male dominated field and that I'd probably be one of the only women in my classes. But I found a group of super strong, really smart women who just like inspire me. And I think we all like work together, and it didn't feel like I was all by myself as a woman in engineering. So I think definitely go for it. Don't let that intimidate you.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think something that my parents told to me probably my junior year of college, so somebody did tell me this, but I think it's still an important message to share, is that don't like say to yourself or say out loud that like you can't do it or you're not smart enough or it's too hard, because that's just not true. And you can do it if you are a hard worker, you're smart, and you are capable of all these things. So don't put yourself down, because as soon as you start putting yourself down out loud or even in your head, you kind of start to internalize it and believe it yourself. And um, you got accepted to college for a reason. You're in that program for a reason, and so you can do it. And on top of that, like it doesn't always have to be perfect. You know, good is good. You don't have to spend 20 hours on one homework assignment. That's, you know, it does not need to be perfect every time. And do your best, and that's good enough, I think is important message, especially for the perfectionists of the world.
A piece of advice my favorite professor ever gave me was, he said the most important thing in college you need to do is to learn how to learn. So everybody can learn this, everyone can do it. It just really it depends on your mindset, like Fiona said. Um, so just as long as you keep trying, you don't get too down on yourself, you can learn to learn.
All right. Yeah. So Steve, you know, if we should close out or
I saw one more question come through on the chat.
oh.
If anybody
Oh,
wants to answer that.
was there anything that you wish somebody told you about it?
I just wanted to ask, because we serve a lot of like underrepresented and first generation college students who do not have guidance from their family members as well as they do not have the resources. So was there something that you wish, like, oh, somebody must have told me, like, I need to do this in high school so I could have like succeeded in the undergrad program. I am just talking for the different students that I serve because um, I myself is an engineer in electronics and telecommunication, but I have done my engineering in India. So I just wanted to know the environment here in US, and I just wanted to get that message that you guys give across to my students about, like, hey, I wish somebody told me about this in high school.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to that. I mean, was my family immigrated here when I was in like first year of high school, from Vietnam, and so I was the first generation to go to college in the U.S. and I definitely didn't have like the family guidance that was necessary because nobody in my family did it before. Um, so and it was definitely hard to like think about what you want to do like in high school, like what major did I want to actually apply to UMass for like communications because I never thought I'd be doing engineering. But when I got here, like I really thought about like what class I enjoyed the most in high school, and it was environmental engineering. I mean, sorry, environmental science. And I think um, maybe not think about what you um, want to do, but more about what skills you want to learn in college so that you can like maybe later do what you want to do. Because I think it's harder to think about what you want to do for the rest of your life because that's in high school you're not gonna know that. Um, so I think that's an advice that I have, and also just like I was also like when I came here, I was in like Revere, Massachusetts, which is not a great like town with a lot of resources for a high school students to go to college. But I would like look up programs in Boston, and I would take the train to like go in and like do SAT prep um, and stuff like that, and they would have more advice for you about how to apply and like how to get financial aid and like all that stuff that was very confusing for a 17-year-old. So I would just say yeah, look it up online and like go to maybe like libraries or events that they host in your town about like college preparation. Those things can be really helpful. So um, yeah, so Steve.
Yeah, no, thank you to everyone for doing this panel for the students who were reaching out to. I think it was very helpful hearing your stories and hearing your advice, your experiences. And if anybody has any questions, um, we have email contacts for the College of Engineering, for our office, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And please contact us and we'll be able to follow you up and maybe even connect you with some of the people that you've seen today. So thank you.